Okay. Bills Mafia, what is up? And welcome into another episode of the Humble and Hungry podcast. My name is Charlie Gross. I am your host, and we are joined by a fantastic guest, friend of mine. His resume is extremely long. He is the CEO of Downtown Rams. He also recently became a New York Jets content creator. He does some draft stuff. He does some Marvel stuff. He's just everywhere on YouTube. Jake Ellenbogen is with me today. Jake, how are you doing?
Well, I am great, my friend Charlie. How are you doing? Thank you so much for having me.
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Trying to build the brand over here. So we're working slow,
I
but we're
see
we're,
that.
we're going.
Hey, you're grinding. I love to see it, man.
Yeah, no, and with some of your help, obviously, I got your creator course, and we talk from time to time. You're very generous with your time when it comes to questions about YouTube and stuff like that. So I appreciate it.
I appreciate you, man. Always DMs are always open for anyone that's trying to, learn a little bit about YouTube and, how they can further grow their channel cuz it's not easy, I
No, it's
kind
not.
of like don't stop, really even if I continue to grow, I'm going to continue to try to learn. So, you can always learn something every day and I'm always just trying to, find out different ways. Maybe if I've been doing something this way, maybe I can switch it tomorrow and, just kind of experiment.
Yeah, and I think that's important because these algorithms are always changing, right?
Oh my
Like
God. Yes, they are. it,
and
it's
now
gotten to the
it's
point where I'm just like, I just tell people, it's like, hey man, like, what do you think about Instagram Reels? Burn it. Don't do it. Just stop. Just Instagram changes their algorithm probably once a week, it feels like. I wouldn't even touch Instagram. I'd be only looking at like, YouTube, Twitter for, the brand kind of foundation, having
right.
that engagement, and then I'd say TikTok.
Yeah, I think TikTok's just like going crazy right now. So
Oh, they're just pushing everything.
yeah. Well, today, before we get into obviously the big game coming up, Bills Rams, one of the best games of the year, I would assume, coming out of the gate. Before we get into that, got to talk about the Jets. As I mentioned, you recently took on the Jets as another content creation for you, trying to learn more about the Jets. So, why don't we start with Joe Douglas? He's been getting a lot of praise around the league, and I think rightfully so to a point. What's your overall view of the Jets and what he's done in terms of draft picks and things like that?
I absolutely love what Joe Douglas did this past year. I thought this offseason was really transformative for Zach Wilson to go out and really, first off, yes, the whole Mekhi Becton thing really sucked, but just to have the wherewithal, like, hey, Mekhi Becton's down. We're not done for the season. Let's go out and, kick tires on Dwayne Brown and see what's up. And they grabbed him. They moved Fant to right tackle. They have, in my opinion, a top 10 offensive line in football on paper. I mean, when you look at those two on the outside, Fant only gave up one sack all of last year. And then you have Elijah Vera Tucker, who is a former first round pick for a reason. I think he still has a ton of growth to, do. And I'm a big fan of his game as well as McGovern, who I think is a top 10 center. And then they bring in Laken Tomlinson, formerly from the 49ers, and he did have a Pro Bowl season with them, but notably when they had Mike LaFleur in-house. Now, Mike LaFleur is the offensive coordinator for the Jets, and I do think being reunited with LaFleur, having the guys around him, we could see another Pro Bowl season out of Laken Tomlinson. You go out, you get Breece Hall in the second round, you get Garrett Wilson the first, you get Jermaine Johnson the first, and Sauce Gardner, who I believe is the best cornerback from this draft. I think there's definitely an argument to be had for Garrett Wilson, but I would lean more towards Jamison Williams when it's all said and done. But regardless, I think there's a lot of upgrades here. They signed CJ Uzama, who just played in the Super Bowl. They signed Tyler Conklin, who was going to take a little bit of a back seat because Irv Smith is coming back from the injury for the Minnesota Vikings. But I think Conklin's really good, a combination of a really good blocker, but it can also help you with the seam buster. He can line up out wide. He can line up in line. I think he's going to be a huge weapon for Zach Wilson. So I really ultimately liked what they ended up doing. Michael Carter, had a great year last year. Actually, both of them did. Michael Carter the second was really good on the defensive side. But Michael Carter, the running back, had a really good year last year. And I think now, he's in tandem with Brees Hall. I think that's exciting. I already mentioned the two tight ends. I didn't mention the rookie who was a good long-term fit, at least in my opinion, with Jeremy Ruckert. So I think they just did a really nice job. They added, Michael Clemens, who we saw plenty of in, preseason. Guy was having a highlight every time he stepped on the field. He's an absolute monster. And I just really like what they did. They went out and they got Jordan Whitehead and DJ Reed. This team is just like I said it, multiple times on Twitter, so I'm sure you saw, but I really think this team can win 9 games. I know it sounds crazy because, the Jets don't win much. I mean, that's just, let's be honest here. They just have really struggled. But, I think a lot of that was, because of, the previous coach. And now I think Robert Saleh, he's a leader. He's somebody that understands defense. So when you have that front that they have, having guys like John Franklin Myers, Quinnen Williams, I think Solomon Thomas is not getting enough talk. Sheldon Rankins had a good, training camp. They have some depth there. In addition to that, they're finally going to get Carl Lawson back. He was hurt last year. He lost all of last year due to an injury. So they're really excited about that. Whether they have Jermaine Johnson, whether they, want to use Bryce Huff, there are a lot of guys there. Jacob Martin, their linebackers are pretty good. They added Quan Alexander for some extra added depth. So I really like this team all across the board. And, Wilson's probably going to miss the first 4 games, and albeit that's entirely against the AFC North. I don't know, what the Jets did to the NFL people to
Right.
do that. But my God, talk about the gauntlet. I do think the Jets will win the game against the Browns. They'll probably end up with 1-3 record out of those 4 games. And then I expect Wilson to be back. I'm not super concerned with Joe Flacco because I think Flacco has a good enough rapport with the receivers in camp and just a good enough running back room and offensive line where they can kind of play, kind of that, I don't want to say it, but the Fisher ball type of mentality, Jeff Fisher offense, really being conservative, just
Right.
trying to hang around, and maybe you generate some turnovers on the defensive side of the ball and you steal a game here and there. I think they can play that way with Flacco. But I will point out, he had a really good game last year against Miami. He's had 9 touchdowns and 3 interceptions since coming to the Jets. So I do have to give him some credit. But I do think when Wilson takes over, he's going to be ready. I'm not looking at preseason at all and what he did, except for the fact that I was pissed off they even played him to begin with. But I think
Right.
Zach Wilson's going to be in for a really good year. And we might see it week 5. Maybe it's a little bit later. But I think he's going to lead this team to, a plus 500 record. That may not be the playoffs. And in my case, I believe they're the 10th team in the AFC. I think it's going to be a really hard battle to get into the playoffs this year. But I think any Jets fan would take 9-8 as a kind of, building block, into the future.
Yeah, definitely. And for me, I just was struggling, like, where do I put them, right? Because they have surrounded Zach Wilson with a lot, but a lot of those are younger players, and so there is obviously some sort of growth involved, like young players growing together, like all trying to read leverage, right? Like the wide receivers trying to read the right leverage, Zach Wilson's trying to read the right leverage. So not sure, I agree. Vera Tucker, love the guy. It still irks me that they traded up for a guard, but that's just a personal thing. I'm like, whatever. Come on, man. Uh, and I'm not. I'm going to tell you, I am not high on the Patriots. I mean, I
No,
think
I'm not
they're a
either.
bottom
And I
10
was
team.
last year. That's the weird
Yeah.
thing.
So it's like,
Yeah.
it wouldn't surprise me at all if the Jets certainly finish with a better record than the Patriots.
And I'm not high on Miami at all. Like it's the Bills and the only team I have winning that. Like they win the
Yeah.
division easily. And then I have the Jets in second at 9-8.
Really? Wow, that's kind of different. Then I will say I like most of Miami's roster, but you just don't know about Tua. I feel like that's kind of like, and their offensive line is Yeah, you
Yeah,
know what I
you
mean, right? Like,
you could say it.
yeah, they're
It's
like
just not very
okay.
good.
No, no, like defensively, I think there's a lot going on there. Um, yeah, it's just there's so many places where I feel like, and the Jets are another one. Like it really depends on Zach Wilson. Like in his growth, they can do whatever they want with the roster. But if he doesn't work out, it kind of I don't want to say it doesn't matter because someone will get another guy and bring him into that team. But that's the really key for whoever is getting to that level is getting these quarterbacks to really get to that next level to mature. So yeah, I mean it's a weird division to me this year. Aside from the Bills, it's hard to know. And I guess New England, I think they're just terrible.
I see. I have the Dolphins at 5-12, and I have the Patriots at 8-9. I think they have the coaching there with Belichick, and I do actually. I think Mac Jones is really good. I mean, I'm kind of surprised saying that, but he's got one of the. I don't think he has the lowest, but he's got one of the lowest 3-and-out rates in the entire league among all quarterbacks. That's something that stands out to me. Another thing that stands out to me is the Patriots being in the top 5 in explosive passing plays the year Brady's gone. So that's the thing is that you have Mac Jones step in there and he has the season he has. I mean, it wasn't a perfect season, but I mean, you saw the Bills game. That was not on Mac Jones. They had him throwing bombs down the field, and I mean, I'm not saying they would have won the game because obviously not. But the
Right.
game could have been a lot different if they didn't they actually backed him instead of just throwing him into the fire the way they did.
Yeah, and
It was
my
kind of
problem with
brutal.
the Patriots isn't Mac Jones; it's just kind of everything else. I feel like that roster is just, I think I don't know, they've done a lot of things where I think if Brady's still there, people are like, "Oh, Belichick is a genius,"
Yeah.
but now that Brady's gone, it just looks kind of foolish. And
And
I think that's
you
the
know,
difference.
it's weird because Belichick has always been kind of an odd, drafter. Going
Yeah,
out and
that's
getting
fair to say.
Bailey Zappi was just bizarre. I mean, I
Right.
thought that was incredible. I mean, you're the analytics guy and you do all the draft stuff. You can at least agree with me on the fact that look, Bailey Zappi, whether he ends up being the best backup quarterback of all time or not, it wasn't good value at all.
No, I can tell you that when Brady left. So if you're taking 2000 to 2018, now this is with Brady, who's easily like the biggest outlier ever. I mean, his draft value score is through the roof. He pulled up so many of his teammates. You got like just random offensive linemen, for the Patriots scoring as high as like Anthony Munoz for me. Like he skewed everything
Oh yeah.
except Bill Belichick's hit rate. His hit rate was like 42% over the course of that span, and that's with Brady. And obviously, now that Brady's left, obviously, your hit rate's going to go down because your team's gotten worse. So he's definitely like a bottom 10 drafting GM for me. Like it's even close, and it's not even necessarily about like the vet like the value of where they get drafted is bizarre, but then no matter who he drafts, he doesn't really develop anybody. It's
Yeah,
I
it's
probably
kind of a
on one
weird
hand I can
thing.
count the guys that like were ever developed. And it's just weird.
And I mean, it kind of sucks for those guys because you think about maybe a Devin Lucian has a completely different career arc if he goes to a
Sure.
different team and actually gets developed, Josh Boyce, Malcolm Mitchell.
Yeah.
I think it was more injuries with him, but yeah, I agree with you. And, I'm a little concerned, as an owner in, IDP Dynasty, I'm a little concerned for Josh Uche's development because this is somebody I drafted thinking guy's going to have 15 sacks and he's going to be an absolute monster. And I haven't really seen it. And then, you look at Kyle Duggar, he's another one, these are guys I loved in the draft.
Right.
So, yeah, I definitely think that's fair. But then what's weird is that he'll always kind of, and this is so Belichickian of him, is that he will grab a JC Jackson, disgruntled UDFA, and turn him into like a star. And it's like, Malcolm Butler, he's the hero of the Super Bowl. Dude was the UDFA. It
Right.
seems like it's not a shtick, whereas I feel like with Kyle Shanahan, it's entirely a shtick with those running backs. No one could tell me otherwise. That is his thing. Like, I guarantee you, even if Sermon was the best back, he would be playing Elijah Mitchell over him just because that's like his thing. He loves UDFA running backs. It's kind of weird. I don't know. But
Yeah, but
like,
yeah,
Belichick, I
Belichick,
mean,
fantastic at like getting other guys who have been in the league from teams
oh
and
yeah.
using them. There's no doubt. It's just that I don't know if he just didn't care or if he just really. And it's funny because like this goes back to when Pioli was there and Dimitrov. It's not just like
Oh
before they
yeah.
kind of left him to his own devices. Like even back then, it's like Richard Seymour and like Brady obviously was basically just luck, and then nobody, and it almost nobody, and it's weird, like
Oh yeah.
it's such two extremes, I think.
Well, and then, it's funny kind of going back to, the Jets. The Jets just have 7 players claimed off of waivers, most in the NFL. So,
Yeah, that's crazy.
that kind of tells me one of two things. Actually, both of them, I'll say. The Jets have a better roster than people give it credit for. I thought that was proof of that. And number two, I think they really have been developing talent. Bryce Huff is a good example of a rotational pass rusher who is never going to lead the league in sacks, but he comes in and he's very good at getting pressure on the quarterback. They got him as UDFA. John Franklin Myers, I don't even really want to talk about because the Rams never should have cut him to begin with. That was like asinine. The dude strip sacked Tom Brady in the Super Bowl, was named rookie of the year on the team, and then the next year he's not even on the roster. I can't even, beyond words. But he's another guy. They get off of waivers, and they keep developing him, and now look at him. I mean, he might be the best player on their team, if I'm
Right.
being honest. And so I think it's been kind of a testament to what they've been able to do developing those guys. I mean, even look at the back end and the secondary. All right, you talk about, first off, I mean, Panak. I thought Panak was going to start. He ends up getting claimed by the Giants. I didn't even think he was going to miss
Right.
the roster. There's a guy, Tony Adams, the UDFA out of Illinois. He makes the roster. You look at, Brandon Eccles. He makes the roster again after a really good year last year in relief. Him, Michael Carter the second. Javelin Guidry gets claimed off of waivers. He's another guy they developed. They just continue. Delshon Phillips gets picked up by the very well taken care of linebacker room of the Ravens. So that tells you something. Like, the Ravens
Right.
wanted him, even though they have a very good linebacker room as it stands now. So there was just all sorts of claims. Again, 7 of them. I think all 7 the Jets wanted back.
Yeah.
Maybe, well, no, because Piron I don't think got claimed. So yeah, I think all 7 they want back. Piron I think is the only guy that they were kind of cool. Like, he'll move on.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah, kind of bizarre, but at the same time, really showing you that Joe Douglas put together a damn good roster. They're developing players, and that's probably why they didn't cut Denzel Mims, because, man, see if you can build up his draft, or build up his trade stock a little bit,
Right.
or see what you have in him, continue to give him a shot. But I really like the way they look, and I didn't even mention this guy, Charlie, but keep an eye on Lawrence Cager. I don't really know what their plan is for him, but they moved him to tight end, the former wide receiver from Georgia, and he's very intriguing to me because he moves so effortlessly because he was a wide receiver. He's just a more, bulky guy.
Right.
He's somebody, like, they kept him over Trayvon Wesco, who I felt like was a really good blocker. So I was surprised they actually did that, but keep a lookout for him. He might be a red zone threat. The Jets have a lot of these guys, man, like Marcel Harris, former safety, moved to linebacker. They have a lot of these guys where you're like, oh, this could be a good player. We'll see.
Yeah, and they certainly have the benefit of not needing to progress, but not needing to necessarily compete this year or even next year. I don't think
Yeah.
it's necessary. I always I want to give young guys at least 3 years, quarterbacks. I mean, and then I think anything shorter than that it's a bit. I mean, unless the guys just tear. I mean, like right away,
Yeah.
like. But I think these other guys, you just got to be patient and just build around them what you can, and then I mean, the Bills talk about they don't say exactly what it meant, but Brandon Bean talks a lot about, well, when I got hired, I told the Pagulas it was a 5-year plan. Well, this is 5 years. I mean, like, so obviously
Yeah.
that was more or less the plan, was to be like, hey, we're going to be a playoff, whatever he said to him, whatever. But it takes that long. You got to, get rid of dead cap or whatever the case may be, build up your depth and stuff like that. So there's no rush. And as long as they're heading in the right direction, for them, I think that's fine.
And there's not one style of how like you win. You know what I mean? Like I think that gets
Well,
kind of lost on people because the Rams have them picks, mindset. But also on top of that, the thing I find funny is that Les Snead champions it because it's literally not true at all. And this.
yeah,
Because without guys like Jordan
right.
Fuller in the 6th round, without guys like Nick Scott in the 7th round, they can't do anything like they're doing right now. They can't afford to trade for Matthew Stafford, to trade for Jalen Ramsey, But then you have teams like,
Right.
the Bengals who create a good core group of young players, Chase, Burrow, Mixon, Jesse Bates, all those guys, right? And then now they feel like, okay, we can actually spend money. And they go out and they spend over $200 million on basically a new defense. And it gets them the Super Bowl, So there are different ways to build your team. You could also go the long-term route. The
Sure.
most homegrown team in the NFL right now is actually the Dallas Cowboys. 81% of their team is homegrown. I was pretty surprised to hear that.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. I do want to go a little bit more into the team building thing you were talking about. But before we do that, why don't you tell everybody where they can find your stuff and all the different stuff you're doing, if they want to follow you on Twitter or check out your Rams podcast or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you guys want to check out my stuff, you can just head on over, if you have Twitter at JKBogan. If you know what Linktree is, you can even put like, the Linktree, I think it's lin.tree or so. I don't even know how they do
those
it,
are
but
weird.
yeah, it's really bizarre. I don't know why the period's there, but it's Linktree / JKBogan. And all my links are there. YouTube, you just put in Jake Ellenbogen, or you can just Google me and I'll show up.
Here I am. So yeah, it's interesting to me because I was thinking about this afternoon about how the Rams built their team, and I haven't compiled the data yet. I have it. I just haven't compiled it. But for 2018, 2019, and 2020, first of all, everyone always says, "Oh, well, they don't have any picks." Well, they had 24 picks that I could measure. So for me to measure the player, they have to have at least played 2 years in the league. Like guys like for the Bills, like Isaiah Hodgins never really played, so obviously like a guy like that I couldn't measure. But 24 picks, hit rate is, it's okay, but like I said, these are the youngest guys. I think they're at 37.5%, which is actually tied for Atlanta, at 17th overall. But if you go back to 2017 and 2016, that hit rate is going to go up. And you're right, they always have like 8 or 9 picks every year. It's just not the first round pick. So
yeah,
and it's interesting because they kind of built the team from scratch, like going back farther, right? Like they got Goff, they kind of built it the organic way, realized like, hey, maybe he's not that good or whatever the case was with that. And then they say, you know what? We're going to add like all these different guys in support of him as well. I'm not saying it wasn't in support of him, but we're just going to do it. We're just going to get proven veterans. So it's like they built it up to a point and then said, well, you know what? We don't want to wait for all the draft picks to hit. We'll just trade for a bunch of guys. So how is it different for you? Because now you're looking at a team, you just started covering the Jets, and they're definitely going the organic route. Like, no doubt about it. So that's got to be like, I know you're a draft guy, so that's probably interesting for you, but it's also kind of weird for you because of how you're your number one team has decided to build their roster through a lot of trades.
Yeah, I think my only regret is not starting to cover the Jets before the draft, right? That would have been so exciting. The idea of
Yeah.
having 2 picks and then they traded up to get another one.
Yeah, you know.
I would have been like a kid in a candy store. I kind of was because I really liked what the Jets did, and I've always liked them, right? Like I was never a fan, so to speak, because I don't have like second favorite teams when it comes to the NFL. Other teams I do, right? Like the NHL, I have 3 teams I root for. But with the NFL, there's one team. There was a second team at one point, the Philadelphia Eagles, because I really liked McNabb. I really like Brian Westbrook, all those guys. But it was really just the Rams. And then the Kurt Warner, run with the Cardinals, I felt the need to root for Warner and the Cardinals. But really, for the most part, I am just a Rams fan. I liked the Jets, but that doesn't necessarily make me a fan. So,
Right.
when they got my favorite cornerback and maybe my favorite prospect from this past draft in Sauce Gardner, I was pretty stoked. I really felt like he and Kayla Chason, or not Kayla. I just totally said Kayla Chason when I was talking about Kayvon Thibodeau. Anyway,
They're close, sort of.
I mean, wow. Yeah, I mean, I liked Caleb on Chason too, but Kayvon Thibodeau and the idea of getting both of them just to me would have been amazing. But then I heard that they were like interested in Debo because I know they were interested in Tyreek. I don't know if the Jets would have made that deal, by the way, but Tyreek made if it was up to Tyreek Hill,
Mhm.
he made the poor career decision choosing the Dolphins over the Jets. I'm going to say that right now because
Yeah.
Zach Wilson would have gotten him the ball, and they might still get him the ball in Miami, but it's going to be like what you saw, like the 66-yard. And it's going to look great if you're a GameCast fan where you don't actually watch the games. You're like, oh, see, Tua threw it 66 yards, and then you actually watch the game. You're like, well, about that. So he threw about 50 yards, and it was a wobbler. And Tyreek Hill ran about 70 and had to run 20 yards backwards to catch it. And then he broke a tackle and ran 10 more yards.
Yeah. Have you?
you know,
I admit that maybe I'm a little. I'm going to ask this question, even though I know that you can drag Bills Mafia for this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Besides Bills Mafia with Josh Allen, have you seen like a fan base that's more like? I guess they really are excited like about Tua. They're like, "Yo, bro, look at that throw, man!"
oh
Like
God.
I'm like, his throw is terrible. Like, what are you talking about? Like, it's not good. And they're just like determined to like convince people that like that throw was amazing and this throw was amazing. And I'm like, well, I don't see it. So I don't know.
I that political troll Nick Adams, right?
Oh, geez, that guy. Man.
Yeah, I think he said because like Tua's like, whatever. And he said like Tua can throw the ball like 70 yards. Like that's how you know he's just a troll. Like I don't even think he's a real
Right.
person. But I don't. I think he's entirely AI made. But here's what I would say. Okay. When it comes to Tua, and I haven't really seen too many Dolphins fans go crazy for Tua, but I want to put my experience out there because I actually like Alabama, and I liked Tua, and I feel bad dogging on him, but here are the facts. Okay, he suffered a very serious leg injury. I don't think he's ever recovered from. He is not the same quarterback that he was at Alabama. He's not. I mean, he could throw a lot further and he threw with a lot more pop and zip than he does now. So I liked him in Alabama, but picking him over Herbert is one of the worst mistakes I think a team has done,
Oh,
uh,
absolutely.
all time, maybe. I mean, I'm not saying Herbert will win a Super Bowl. I'm not saying Herbert is the GOAT or anything like that. I'm not saying, but right now, if you look at all of his stats and everything, he's on a ridiculous pace.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, just think about that. The Chargers, they have a good roster, but would you rather be throwing to Tyreek Hill and, what's his face, Jalen Waddle right now? Or would you rather throw to Mike Williams and Keenan Allen? I think I
Right.
might take Keenan Allen over both of them, but I would take those two in tandem over Keenan Allen and Mike Williams because Williams can't stay healthy. I mean, let's be honest here.
Right.
So I think when I could not believe they passed on Herbert, but then the whole Tua thing, like he had the 4 touchdown game, and that's like literally if you see anybody like arguing for him, they bring up the 4 touchdown game. Like, okay, Trubisky had 6 touchdowns, and you're the same person that wants to tell me he is trash with a capital T.
Right.
So, like, make up your mind here. You know what I mean? Like, well, you can't just look at one game, looks at one game. Like, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
it's so I don't hate Tua. I have no issue with Tua, right? I just don't think that he is the right option that is conducive to winning football. I just don't. I think he he has an arm problem there where he can't because he could throw it a lot further in college. I mean, he clearly
Right.
he's banged up. Like to the point where it's not going to get fixed. Like he's had some of that sapped away from him, I think. But I just think at this point, Tua is going to have to be like a game manager that can make maybe the deeper intermediate throws,
Right.
but he's not a deep ball passer like people are pointing out. So the hope is for him that, he continues to grow. He gets better at reading defenses and, can stay healthy. Because if he can, he'll be like, Ryan Tannehill. But here's the thing. The Dolphins already had Ryan Tannehill. And there are Dolphins fans that do somewhat believe that Tua is like special in some way. And, that's the draft you passed on Justin Herbert in, who we knew was special the moment we saw his first game in the NFL. I mean,
Right. Yeah.
so,
And to me, Tua, and I've said if there is a path for him, to me, it's being elite mentally and being elite accuracy wise, like Breeze and Manning, and I'm not trying to say that those guys couldn't throw the ball downfield, but they beat you so much with understanding what the defense is going to do, like that whole thing. And I think that that's his path, but you have to like be that on every play
oh,
if you
yeah.
don't have those physical gifts. And that, I mean, I got to imagine that's very difficult to maintain. That level of mental and mechanical too, just to make sure the accuracy and things like that are on point all the time.
Well, and we know. I mean, it's either going to work out or it's not. But we have an idea that he's not going to be,
Right.
special. And when you draft a guy 3rd overall and you pass on somebody who most people thought was special before he came to the NFL, not a good look.
No.
I think we'll see. It could be very similar to like a Sean McVay instance where McDaniel sticks with him for a while and is like, man, I'm trying to move mountains with this guy. I
Yeah.
can't get to the promised land, so I don't think this is going to cut it. The Dolphins could be good, but I have them at 5-12. I just feel like they have a schedule where there are a lot of games that could go either way, and I tend to go the other way from the Dolphins because when push comes to shove in those close games, I'm not picking Tua to win those games. I'm picking
Oh
Derek
yeah.
Carr. I'm picking,
Right.
Russell Wilson. I'm picking Josh Allen. I'm picking Mac Jones. I mean, that's the thing. And
Right.
so, I think they're going to be in a lot of really close games. And I just think Tua's going to have to show you that he can finish those games. And until he does, I'm sorry, people forget like the reason the Dolphins even had a shot at the end of last year, it's not because of Tua. I mean,
No. No.
you know,
Yeah.
so I mean, I think the interesting thing here, they won't do it because we already know, like they already made it clear, Flores didn't want to play Tua, they wanted to play Tua, all of that. Because
Yeah.
Flores wanted to, win a Super Bowl. He actually cared about that. But I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick gave you the best chance. Now, was it the biggest chance of any team in the league?
Right.
No, but he gave you the best chance on the roster. They actually have a guy who's better than Ryan Fitzpatrick was last year on the roster, and that is Teddy Bridgewater. And I will
Right.
even say this, okay? There's a guy who, honestly, I very rarely get blown away by any preseason. There were two guys that absolutely blew me away this year. One guy on the Rams, because the rich get richer, of course. Lance McCutcheon was phenomenal. The other guy was Skylar Thompson. I watched Skylar Thompson. Okay, being a Kansas Jayhawk football fan, like they're my number one team. I watched Skylar Thompson just destroy Kansas, but he never looked to me like anything more than just a college quarterback. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and then I watched him in preseason. I understand it's against second and third stringers, whatever. He looked good. Like he was making like reads and he was making anticipatory throws that like I'm not seeing Tua make, And so now all of a sudden I start to wonder. I'm like, Skylar Thompson, he's got the athleticism, he's got the arm, he's got the accuracy, he can throw with anticipation, he's got the pocket presence. And I'm sitting there. Chris Trevler was also another mention. I got to give him credit. But Skylar Thompson here had 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions in the preseason. I don't know if you watched his games at all, but he was incredible. He really was.
Yeah.
He doesn't get enough, talk. I know Dolphins fans had to take it way too far and be like, we need to get rid of Teddy Bridgewater and keep. No. That's not what I'm saying. Because Bridgewater's your best quarterback on the roster, so I'm not getting rid of him. But Skylar Thompson, if push came to shove, I wouldn't be surprised if you give him a couple of years and he starts looking like maybe a Dak Prescott, a guy that they get in the 6th round. I mean, Dak was a 4th rounder. They get him the 6th round and they're not thinking much of him initially, and then they keep developing him and they're like, oh, okay. All right. There we go.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying Skylar Thompson's the face of the NFL, but he's got everything you want in today's standards, like a modern day quarterback. I mean, if you can throw with anticipation, if you can make your reads, if you have velocity, if you have an arm, if you have the confidence in the pocket, you have the wherewithal to step up in the pocket, you can make plays with your legs. I mean, I know we're just describing Josh Allen here, and he's not quite built like Josh Allen, but
I was going to say, speaking of the face of the league,
best quarterback in football, but no, I mean, I think, Skylar Thompson made this 53-man roster. He's on the practice squad. So yes, I can talk about him. And, yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with Tua. I know he's a 1st-round pick, but this regime didn't draft him. This regime drafted Skylar Thompson. And, yeah, I don't know. He's a guy, if at the end of the year he's starting, I would be a little surprised, but it wouldn't shock me.
So, Bills Rams.
Yes.
There's a lot of stuff I want to get to, including the face of. I never thought I'd hear you say that. First of all, I listened to your podcast a couple weeks ago, and I heard that was the Rams uniforms podcast, and I did hear you say that Josh Allen is the face of the NFL.
I didn't think I'd ever say it because I think when we became friends, I thought Josh Allen was overrated. If I'm not mistaken.
I know you did not like Josh Allen.
But like, here's the thing, Charlie, and I hope you've noticed since you've gotten to know me. The thing with me is that I'm pretty open about my mistakes. I had Josh Allen as my 7th overall quarterback coming out of that draft. Lamar Jackson was number 1. I don't think that's wrong. I don't think it's wrong to put Lamar there because if Lamar figures out how to throw on the run, surprisingly, people think he can't throw out of the pocket. He's great out of the pocket. If he can figure out how to throw on the run, he's going to be unstoppable. But it's him and it's Josh Allen. And I had Josh Allen 7th. So while I do deserve praise for the Lamar Jackson at 1, I don't deserve praise for Josh Allen at 7. So that, I've been hitting on some quarterbacks here. I mean, but the Allen miss, and then, we'll see. I mean, I still think Trey Lance is the best quarterback from last year. And, I've been open to the Jets following that I believe that. But I've since become very high on Zach Wilson because I think he showed you some things last year. But yeah, sticking with the Rams and Bills, not getting too carried away there. Yeah, I think the Rams are playing the best quarterback in the National Football League. And I'll be honest with you here, Charlie, and I don't mean to be rude about the Bills because I have them going to the Super Bowl against the Rams. I think this is 100% a preview of Super Bowl 57. But after further review, I don't like this Bills team as much as I did. That doesn't mean I don't like it. I don't think they're going to win the
Right.
AFC. Doesn't mean I don't think they're going to go to the playoffs and the Super Bowl. But it feels like they are definitely going to miss Tre'Davious White for however long he's out, and I feel like that starts in this game. They have great safeties. They have Poyer. They have Hyde. I really like Hamlin, Johnson. Really like those guys. They got maybe the best quad group of safeties in football. Maybe. But I don't love their corners. Kyer Elam I like, but we need to see it, right?
Well,
Uh,
sure, yeah.
Rookie corner, I think that's the toughest position aside from tight end, where you literally have to play wide receiver and learn how to be an offensive lineman at the same time.
Right.
I think it's the hardest position outside of tight end to play in the league, and as a rookie, and I think that's something. I think there are definitely some guys there. Dane Jackson has had some moments. I definitely liked him coming out of college, but I don't love him. And I like Teron Johnson as the nickel, but I like Teron Johnson when they're healthy and they have Tre'Davious White a lot more.
Sure.
So, that's the first thing. The second thing is I don't love the linebackers. Tremaine Edmonds is nowhere near what I expected him to be. I thought he was going to be an absolute freak show, guaranteed superstar. By this point, he should have been the best linebacker in football. That is like literally the praise that I gave him coming in. I think Matt
Right.
Milano's solid. They got Terrell Bernard, who I didn't really like in the draft. Balin Spector. They got some guys that I don't know. I just don't love their linebackers. I really like their front. Gregory Rousseau has 18 sack potential. I mean, he honestly could terrorize the league. There are guys like that I really like, and I like their overall depth. The receivers look really good. Their offensive line, there's pieces of it I really like. They're pieces that, I think you're going to get better than on paper when it comes to having a guy like Cromer. And you know that.
Sure,
So I'm not
yeah.
telling you anything you don't know there, but really like that they added, Cook. I think James Cook gives them that explosion that they have missed and they do not have in the backfield now that they have it. And I think that, Gabe Davis is going to take a huge step forward in year 2. So I am excited for him. Khalil Shakir, I like his ability to break tackles and, create yards after the catch. Does a really nice, job of putting himself in position to do that. And the guy is just physical. I love guys that act like running backs when they have the ball in their hands. So, I am a fan of his, and I like that they added very underrated signing, by the way, going out and getting Crowder. Kind of just does it all, So this is a very good roster. But I just feel like going into this game and not having Tre'Davious White could be a serious problem. And it's part of the reason why I ended up, and it was surprising because I was like, this is going to come down to a field goal. But I ended up giving the Rams a 10-point win, 34-24 at home. I think it's going to be, there's going to be points scored.
Sure, yeah.
And I think the reason I like this team so much, and I didn't realize it, but is really Josh Allen. I mean, I really feel like Josh Allen is at this point in his career where if you give him average weapons and you give him enough protection where he can at least run out of the pocket,
Right.
and just run for his life, and he doesn't get snapped. He doesn't get hit immediately as the ball is snapped. Then, like, honestly, he could probably carry most teams to the playoffs in the league. And
Yeah.
so he doesn't have to do that with the Bills. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
But I feel like this is a very good team. But I feel like the best roster in the AFC is actually the Ravens. And I think the thing that puts the Bills over the top, because I have those two playing in the AFC title game. And I think the thing that puts those two, the team over the top over the Ravens, is that Josh Allen is literally like the perfect specimen at quarterback. And he has gotten so much better as a decision maker that he just doesn't kill you anymore, you know?
Right, right. Did you see
So
that interview that he had with Chris Sims?
I did not,
It's
but I
like
have to check
from
that out.
a week ago, and it's 33 minutes long, and the stuff he talks about, like I've never heard anyone talk about it. I mean, he goes through like his mechanics really in depth and how what they did with body mapping with Jordan Palmer, and he talks about like becoming a rotational thrower and how he sets up the throw and what he's thinking, like why he holds the ball like forever.
Yeah.
And and it was and like how the Bills, and even like it's into some of the stuff where how the Bills run their offense, and it was just really like really interesting. I was like, wow, I've never heard anyone just kind of come out and like he says that he sets up to throw left but leaves it open so he can throw right if necessary, like in his like how his shoulders are and his feet,
Crazy.
and yeah, and like all kinds of stuff. And I was like, wow, and I've been on this Josh Allen train, 6,000 total yards from scrimmage this year,
Ridiculous.
which is, and the reason I say that, well, first of all, I agree. I think everyone in the Bills fan base is a little worried about the corners until Trey White comes back, and I think the only good thing about that is, and I know Levi Wallace had more experience than these two guys, but the scheme did a lot of work, and I think the scheme does a lot of work, and I think what they're really counting on is Von Miller doing a lot of work, and Greg Rousseau and Ed Oliver. Like I really think they're kind of like, okay, like look, guys, we need you to finish up there, like we really do, and I think Tremaine Edmonds is maybe the most polarizing person on the Bills. Some people absolutely love him. The Bills seem to love him. They talk about him as the leader of the defense all the time. Other fans are obviously a bit disappointed. They don't want to give him, the Darius Leonard contract, which is understandable. The one thing I'll say about Tremaine is his processing isn't exactly where I'd like it to be. That being said, the Bills have not done a fantastic job of protecting him the way the Colts did Darius Leonard. Like getting Daquan Jones is going to make Ed Oliver better. I think Edmonds has always had to have like guys to fight off guys quicker than other linebackers in a way. And so, he hasn't been signed to an extension yet. They're assuming going to wait till the end of the year. I'm assuming he's betting on himself. And this is I think the Bills want him back, but this is a great. Okay, what more can we do for Tremaine Edmonds? And the answer is kind of nothing. So now you've got to show us, like he's above average for sure, but right, he's not in that like super elite level, And I think the offensive line, yeah, I think this is the best offensive line Josh Allen's had. Now, is it the best? Is it a top 10 offensive line? I don't think so, but I mean, he was playing behind John Feliciano for a lot of there were like Brian Winters. So like, there's been some really bad, and sure, it's like, okay, Josh, just go run away from him if you have to, and I think that's the benefit like of having him is that he can run away. And he even talked about that with Chris Sims. He's kind of like, yeah, man, like there's times where like, I'm just trying to like wait. He basically said like, I'm telling the receiver, you get open, and I'm going to wait as long as I can for you to get open, whether that's 7, 8, 9 seconds. And I'm just going to sit here, and so I think that's where he's comfortable too. I think is, in that area. Like to me, you don't want him to move. Like if you make him move, I think that's where he's most comfortable. So like, I'm trying to get him to not move. Like if I'm the opposition,
Oh yeah. No, I agree. And it's funny. I just have to give a little mention here because Darius Leonard no longer exists. It's Shaquille
I
Leonard.
know, yeah,
And
yeah.
it is the
Tyrod
most
Taylor's gonna call me too and tell me that
it's the most mind-blowing thing for me because I like every time, like I don't know why this guy continues to be in the news. Like it's just like every little thing I get like a push notification on my phone. I'm like, who the hell is Shaquille Leonard? Who
Yeah,
is
I know. I
this
was like, wait
guy?
a
Like,
minute. Like, they mean Shaquille O'Neal? That's what I first thought. I'm like, wait,
it's
what?
it's like, oh yeah, Shaq Leonard. I'm like, who the hell is that? Indianapolis Colts. Oh, that's right. He changed his name.
Right.
Another guy changed his name. Deontay Harris was
Yeah. No,
the
I'm
returner.
like, wait, who's that Saints wide receiver? Like, what?
Yeah,
I'm like trying to find him.
so
I'm like, where'd he
bizarre.
go?
Oh man.
So let me ask you a question, because this is something that our mutual friend Joe Marino has brought up a few times on Locked On Bills, and the Bills obviously are going through some changes, right? With Dable leaving and Ken Dorsey taking over, and you mentioned Aaron Cromer, which I think is a huge upgrade from Bobby
Massive.
Johnson. And you know, I think like Bills and Rams, probably two of the best four teams in the league. Um, so if the Bills lose, I'm not mad, like, because it's the Rams. It's not like it's they're going to lose 9-6 in overtime to Jacksonville or anything like that. Um, so, but one of Joe's things is, well, the Rams have a lot of changes too. Like there's certain things. So maybe this is a time where you're going to catch the Rams still sort of, assimilating the new pieces and all that stuff in. But then obviously, I think you can turn around and say, okay, well, you can say the same thing about the Bills, right? Like Ken Dorsey's never called plays, this, that, the other. So what stock do you put into? And weird things happen in week one anyway. But
Oh
what
yeah.
stock do you put into sort of, like assimilating all these changes for both teams?
So I think there's definitely some stock to be put in, like the Rams. They're going to have. I mean, there's a chance they might not have Van Jefferson. There's a chance. If they don't, then it would be Tutu Atwell and Ben Skoranek kind of splitting time. Maybe we'd even see Lance McCutcheon active. That would be cool. Um, the Rams only have two tight ends, so that's another thing. If Tyler Higbee, who did get hurt last year, if he were to get hurt again, then they're just down to Bryson Hopkins. They've chosen this. This is on them. Now there's a chance that, and I don't know for sure, but there's a chance that they could use Skoranek, as a tight end. He's more of the bulky wide receiver, but I do think that until we see this offense, like, anything can happen. I mean, until we see this defense, anything can happen. They added Bobby Wagner. Okay. The thing that I do find funny, and I don't mean to knock on my friend of the podcast, Troy Reader. He's now with the Chargers, but Troy Reader, okay, was the starting linebacker last year for the Rams. And I see a lot of people say, like, Bobby Wagner kind of looked the tick off last year. He's slow, he lumbers. And I'm like, so you're telling me off of 1 year, in which, by the way, he had like a career high in tackles. I'm not saying tackles is the end all be all, but it is a good sign that, like, you didn't completely fall off, at least athletically, because you have to
Right.
actually run and be able to make tackle. So yeah, so Bobby Wagner is the starter, and I keep hearing like knocks about his athleticism, and I'm like, again, with all due respect to Troy Reader like ran like a 4.8, 4.9 maybe. Like
Yeah.
he's not ultra fast. He's not an ultra athletic guy. He was playing next to Ernest Jones. There were moments, last year they rotated. Like Kenny Young started the season, then they trade him. And then they had like, Traven Howard in there. But like Bobby Wagner is an astronomical upgrade. And did we ever think for a sec that maybe, just maybe, the people around him in Seattle just,
We're
didn't really put him in
terrible.
a good spot? Now he's playing behind Aaron Donald. You talk
Right.
about,
Yeah.
the upgrade, like, Daquan Jones. Now you have Aaron Donald. Now you have Greg Gaines, who's coming off his monster, season last year, finally getting an opportunity. Ashawn Robinson. It's one of the best defensive fronts in football. So I
Yeah. No
think
doubt.
Wagner's going to be fine. But I mean, like you said, there is always that, like, hey, like, this is your first regular season game. You didn't play at all in preseason. Josh Allen, if I'm not mistaken, even played in preseason. So
I mean, 6
I
plays.
hey, 6 plays is more than every single Rams
Right. Right.
defensive and offensive starter that I can think of. So there's something there. You could also say there's something. Jalen Ramsey's coming off his, you know, I mean he's been back, right? But he did get
Right.
surgery in the offseason. Jordan Fuller is coming off his rehab of his broken ankle, you know. So there are injuries that guys are coming back from. Um, I do think that that's a big thing. I think if there's anything that holds weight, it's the offensive line, because it's not just Whitworth's gone, but it's the fact that, Noteboom needs to stay healthy. He has shown some great things, and that is why the Rams felt the need to bring him back as left tackle. They drafted him in the third round at TCU for a reason, but he has not stayed healthy. And while another guy who came in last year when he got hurt, in addition to Whitworth, Alaric Jackson, he played well. Like, as great as that sounds, that you have a guy that can come in and play well, you got to keep all 5 guys healthy, and you have to develop, and you have to have that continuity, and you have to gel. And I think it is incredibly important this game, the game against the Falcons, moving forward for the Rams, they need to gel as an offensive line. Noteboom has to play with, Edwards. I had totally lost my train of thought there. Noteboom has to play with Edwards. Edwards has to play with Allen. Allen has to play with Shelton, and then Shelton has to play next to Havenstein, who was named captain. Those guys all need to play as a collective unit. That is the one thing. If you could think of anything, Corbett's gone and Whitworth's gone. Okay. The offensive line, if they don't keep Stafford upright, and the Rams can't run, and it looks like they were trying to run against the Bengals, then they're going to have a hard time scoring points. But if the offensive line is just at least average, this offense is going to shred. And I think they're above average. I think these are 2 of the best offenses in football. And I think there's a chance these are 2 of the best defenses in football. I think the Bills, their final product at the end of the year when Tre'Davious White is back, it's going to be fun. But I think, going into this game, they might let up 34 points.
Yeah.
So that's my thoughts.
Hardest 6 games or 7 games are probably Trey White's probably going to miss them all.
Yeah.
We're not sure he has to spend at least 4 weeks on the pup, and then there's speculation that they won't bring him back till after the week 7 bye. But obviously the Bills aren't going to tell us that. But they've never been a team to rush players back. They look at it as, we need him to get healthy, obviously, for the playoffs and then for future years. I mean, it's not just about this year. You want him for another 5 or 6 years, whatever it is so they're not going to rush him back for that. And yeah, one thing I am interested in is I don't think the Bills want to run more, but they certainly want to run more efficiently. And so that'll be interesting to me, because I still think Singletary is like the primary guy. Cook, they almost view Cook sometimes as like a slot receiver, do some interesting stuff with him. So I'll be interested to see how this offensive line does against what you've already said is a very good defensive front, for the Rams. I mean, Aaron Donald is here or there as a run defender. According to ESPN.
I know where I knew where you were taking that from. Dear Lord.
But, so that's going to be interesting, because like I said, I don't think they want to suddenly become 50-50. But they certainly want to be more efficient. And for whatever reason, Brian Dable wanted to be zone blocking and man blocking, and they were kind of terrible at both. So now they've just kind of settled on zone blocking. So we'll see what happens with that. But that's going to be something else that I'm going to, be interested in certainly during the game and as the season progresses, as well. And, people always say, well, they have to stop calling runs for Josh Allen. Well, I think PFF said that they only did 79. I think it was 79 called runs which is pretty low for him. So, hopefully Zach Moss can take some of that short yardage stuff off of him too. And, we'll see with him being healthy. But yeah, I would say that the offensive line, obviously, same thing with the Bills. I mean, you got some definite known quantities, and then Saffold's coming off a rib injury from a car accident, and which no one even knew about. And then, Ryan Bates went in there last year and it looked like Anthony Munoz or something there for a little while. So we'll see if that maintains. But I think that's an underrated part of the game for the Bills too. Is that running game?
Yeah, I think so too. Because they're so diversified. You talk about, Moss is more of that I'm gonna punch you in the mouth type of runner. Whereas it's like they call him motor, but he obviously ran like a 4.6. Like he's not like super, super fast, but motor Singletary,
Right. Yeah,
he's
I don't know why
shifty.
they.
Like he's slippery in space. He has those elements to
Yeah,
his game, and then you have the explosion and just the straight line athleticism that you get out of James Cook. So I think that's a very diversified backfield. And I forget who the other guy. I think it's Tywan Jones, if I'm not
yeah, he's
mistaken.
like the special teams guy.
Yeah, so like I just figured I'd give him a mention because he's in the running back
Well,
room.
I'm
But
sure he appreciates it.
yeah, yeah, I think it'll be interesting on the other side with the Rams because that's actually something I felt like they kind of lacked is diversity in the running back room.
Right.
You talk about Daryl Henderson, who I think is their best rusher. He's the most efficient on their team, best pass protector. Really good pass catcher out of the backfield. Saved their Super Bowl. I mean, he had 4 catches for 40+ yards when Cam Akers wasn't doing anything. Now, albeit he came off of a torn Achilles, I've never seen anything like it. So we'll see what ends up happening with him because we saw Marlon Mack coming off his torn Achilles, and I mean, I'm sorry, he looks like he's gone. Like he's not the same running back. It's really unfortunate. So. You have those two, and then you have Kyron Williams, who's very exciting. My co-host Alexis obviously loves him being as she's a Notre Dame fan and she's been a fan of his for so long. But I've been a big fan of Kyron, and I watched the tape and I'm like, I don't know why, and maybe you
Looks like a great
differed, but
pass
you know,
blocker.
yeah, I had him in the top five at the running back spot. I think he brought so much to the table. Maybe he wasn't as sexy as a Damian Pierce or somebody like that, but
Right.
I preferred him more because he did all the little things extremely well. And, this is somebody that he took all the first team reps when those two were out against the Bengals in that joint practice. And it was enough for the Rams to be like, all right, we're not going to play you at all in preseason. That was so telling to me to let me know that, look, this is a true running back by committee, just like the Bills.
Right.
I don't think, for people drafting Cam Akers in like the second round, I don't know what you're doing. I've said over and over again, like, Daryl Henderson, running back 61, you are out of your mind. But I think all three of those guys are going to be splitting time. And it's incredibly intriguing because there are two guys that can pass protect. There's one guy that can't. All three of them can, catch because, Kyron Williams is a former receiver coming out of high school. So, he has that background. And then all of them have like a little bit of like, obviously they can break tackles and they have like a shiftiness to them. Now, is Kyron like the fastest running back? No, he's not. But I think his 40 time is very much overblown. I don't think that's what he is. Because if that was what he was, then how was he able to run past the entire UNC defense on that one run where he went all the
Right.
way to the left side? I just, it just doesn't seem logical unless everybody else was trying to make it look cool. And all right, we're right behind him, but like, it's like I don't, what were they in cahoots? I mean, I don't see how that would have worked. So,
Right.
but ultimately, I'll tell you this right now, Charlie. I think the biggest reason why I am so high on the Rams this year, as opposed to last year, and why I think they're a better team, is their two additions. They go out and they get, Bobby Wagner, like I said, and they went out and they got Allen Robinson. And I think Robinson is going to lead the league in receiving. I really believe that because I think teams are going to be so infatuated with Cooper Kupp. And I mean, they should be. I
Right.
just put out a tweet. He's top 5. I forget what it was, but he's like top 5 all time in 16, 16 game, like average per 16 game average in, I think it's touchdowns and it's receptions and receiving yards, which is ridiculous. I mean, that's just absolutely ridiculous. So Kupp's been doing this for a while. He didn't have the MVP caliber seasons every year, but he had
Right.
been doing this stuff for a while. And I think now with that season, the Super Bowl MVP, like teams are going to be sitting there like, if we don't double team this guy, like, and we lose, we're not going to be able to live with ourselves. So they're going to double team him. They're not going to double team the guy that just had 412 receiving yards, I can assure you. And
Right.
I think Allen Robinson's going to reap the rewards. And for anybody that thinks that they're going to make adjustments throughout the season, and well, Jake, how could Allen Robinson lead the league in receiving? Won't they eventually just pivot to him? No, because then you pivot to him, and now Cup's going to go off. And
Right.
Another thing that is so crucial about Allen Robinson is, no matter if you're talking about big game Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce, you're talking about anybody, the last 20 years or more, maybe ever, the Rams have never had a receiver like Allen Robinson. They just haven't. They have never had a guy that would go up and play the ball like Megatron would. He's got
Right.
such a great catch radius. He's got such a great understanding of leverage, wherewithal, where he is in, accordance to the, the boundary and, the blade of grass. I mean, he always does such a great job with his body control, staying in bounds and coming down with the catch and boxing out defenders as if he was a power forward / center in the NBA going for a rebound. Like, he plays above the rim. I've said that so many times. I think people are tired of it, but he really does. And that's something the Rams haven't had. I mean, if you want a good example, the Rams thought they had a big bodied, deep threat, like a jump ball guy, when they had Josh Reynolds. I mean, come
Right.
on now. Josh Reynolds did that in college. It's a lot different in college. You have to translate that to the NFL.
Oh
And,
yeah.
the game's faster. You have to get the timing down. I just think, like, what Allen Robinson has done throughout his career, he had 1,400 yards with Blake Bortles. Like, why can he not get
Right.
1,600 with Matthew Stafford?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it'll be interesting to see. I know the Bills play a lot of zone. They play a lot of cover 3, but I think we're going to get, Kyler Elam, Allen Robinson matchup. I would assume, at least a little bit. So that'll be interesting to me because Elam's, as corners go, he's 6'1", whatever. So that'll be interesting. Definitely, I think at this stage in his career is more comfortable playing man than he's playing zone. So we'll see, and I'm assuming the Bills are obviously going to roll some safeties Cooper Kupp's way. So Kyrie Elam will get a potential to get a quick learning curve there. Um, so you already gave a prediction, and I haven't really thought about my prediction at all. But I'll give a prediction just off the top of my head here. It's weird because, like you said, I think two of the best 3 or 4 offenses and 2 of what we assume is the best 4 or 5 defenses. So it's kind of weird for me to pick like this crazy, high scoring game, but you almost have to. So I'll say, I don't know. I'll say 34-31 Bills. But like I said, if they lose, it wouldn't be a surprise to me.
It's funny, that
These
was
games,
literally my score before I switched it to the 10-point game.
and I have one question for you before we go that has nothing to do with the AFC, has nothing to do with the Rams. I do some writing for Nuts and Bolts Sports,
Love them.
and Vikings guy over there, Steve Rogers, and I caught a quick 30-40 seconds of your season preview, and I saw the cross Vikings. I'm like, the Vikings. I'm like, I don't have the Vikings even making the playoffs. And so Steve always gets mad at me because I'm telling him, how much whatever, like Quessie's gonna get fired and the Wilfs don't know what they're doing. So give me your take on the Vikings.
Yeah, so hopefully he saw that and he got excited. But but yeah, so the Vikings, I really think it's all been about Mike Zimmer. I just don't think he's been a good head coach. I think his defense has been overrated. And so now you get him out of there. You have a good looking group. I really like what they did. Added Louis Cine. Really like his ability. Andrew Booth, that excites me. I'm not the biggest fan of Patrick Peterson at this point in his career, but I think he's, solid. But I think really the big thing for the Vikings is going to be their offense. Their defense is good enough to win games that their offense scores 25 a game, right? I think this is going to be one of the best offenses in all of football because you're putting Kirk Cousins, who has had, if I'm not mistaken, he's had a triple digit passer rating 3 straight years in a row. He's been unbelievable, and it's like people don't want to give him his credit because, he doesn't play well on primetime games or whatever, which whatever. Last year I believe it was 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and this year, he's going to be pretty much back at home in his Washington style offense that Sean McVay ran that got him
Right.
really on the map. Kevin O'Connell is going to be able to inject all of what he's learned in the Sean McVay scheme. And on top of that, I think I lost you.
Sorry.
There you are.
All good, everybody.
It's like,
I kicked myself out of the broadcast. My apologies.
I was like, damn, dude. Like, you really couldn't take the knowledge there. You're
That
like, oh
Vikings
crap.
talk, I had to get out of here.
Oh man. Yeah, so really, I think it really stems with the fact that the offense is going to be really good. The offensive line they've built through the draft, I really like. I really like Dalvin Cook. I really like Alexander Madison. I like Kene and Wongwu, however the hell you say his name. I like Ty
I think
Chandler.
that's it.
I really like that running back room. And then on top of that, I mean, Thielen has been a baller.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, definitely.
Justin Jefferson is probably going to win Offense Player of the Year, I think, this year. But Thielen has been an absolute baller, and I think it's going to make him better on top of that. Then you look at KJ Osborne and his emergence. If you want to look at his emergence further, just look at the fact they got rid of Amir Smith-Marset. And that was a mid-round pick that they just got rid of because KJ is just really blown up.
Right.
And then they go out and they get Jalen Reagor, who, I'll say it over and over again, the Eagles were really done with him after a year. They were not going to give him a chance. They were not going to give him a chance, and they didn't use him correctly. And they just fell in love with Quez Watkins. And I have no issue with it because I think the Eagles are going to be really good this year. I really like Irv Smith. I just ultimately I came to the conclusion where I'm picking all the games, I'm going through each one, and I just kept looking at these games. I'm like, I can't see the Vikings losing this. I can't see the Vikings losing this game either. I can't see them losing this game. Wow, I literally can't see the Vikings losing many games this year. And then all of a sudden, I came away and they're 13-4 or whatever I had them at. I think that 13-4. So yeah, I have them playing the Rams in the AFC title game. Just like I said earlier, I had the Ravens playing the Bills in the AFC title game, and I think it's going to be those 4 teams. They'll be the final 4, the Elite 4, and we'll see what happens. But I have the Rams Bills, and I have the Rams winning back-to-back Super Bowls, and confirming that they are the next dynasty that we have seen since Tom Brady, Bill Belichick.
Yeah, I haven't actually. I probably should. I haven't done a full season schedule prediction yet. I probably will on playoff predictors, but yeah, I have the Bills going to the Super Bowl. I'm not going to pick them to win, regardless of who happens to get there, because they just haven't yet, and I don't want to whatever. So if they get to the Super Bowl and they lose to the Rams, not ideal. However, getting to the Super Bowl, getting to the Super Bowl is a great thing, and I'm sure there'll be a few Bills losing Super Bowl jokes on Twitter, but we'll wade through those if we have to.
Oh yeah, that'd be rough.
That'd be a little tough. The Mafia would not be thrilled with Twitter at that point.
Oh Lord.
Well, Jake, I appreciate you coming on with me and doing the show. You can find Jake at JK Bogan on Twitter. Check out his YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff going on there. I appreciate you listening or watching to this. Please check out our stuff. You can check out me on Twitter at TTP_Charlie. Check out the YouTube channel. Football season is obviously, I don't think it's around the corner. It's right here in front of us. We will be doing player grades for hopefully the whole league. We'll see how it goes. A lot of draft stuff coming for you too. So once again, we thank you. We thank Jake, and we